Today, Fools of the Pit is proud to have with us Mr. Dick Lucas of Subhumans, Culture Shock, and Citizen Fish. Probably one of the hardest and longest working punk rockers that I know of.
I do try not to be really hard working. I'm trying to give up that hard working thing, join the band, that's the
idea. So let's see. I'd like to get started with the first question here, I guess. We'll get it rolling while we're waiting on Brady. If what has been your most memorable experience throughout the years? Like if you had one thing that stuck out, one show, maybe one particular show, let's say a show.
I guess logically, and I thought, well, what would stand out amongst all the shows? I mean, like we're talking like over 3,000. So let's pick like possibly the biggest one, which was the San Bernardino one. I forget the name of the venue, but it was basically the size of an airplane hangar. It probably was an airplane hangar. It was when the Subhumans reformed in '98. We came over and did a US tour, and we wanted to go around all the states, and we more or less did. But we thought, like, we'd do one show in each state. But like doing one show in California, where there's a lot of a big punk rock scene, and a lot of people, was a bit of a mistake. So the one show got moved from this size venue to that size to this size to a massive venue because there were so many people wanting the tickets. I think it was something mad like 4,000 people in there or 6,000, some nameless mass in front of this stage that was so long that like if we'd stood at one end and one at the other end, we'd have to like literally have binoculars to see each other. I stood in the corner of the venue and looked before it all filled up, and the PA desk was like in the middle, and it's just like a tiny little box in the distance. I only mentioned this one because like it was a big one. It was very memorable, put it that way, because and it was a bit scary. I mean, there were 3 or 4 pits going on simultaneously in different parts of the place. Fights were breaking out outside and inside. The cops were strip searching, or almost strip searching everybody as they came in, confiscating anything made of metal. It was pretty heavy and pretty nasty in that sense. Halfway through the set, somebody stood on something and the PA went out. And he's like, oh, mid song. Suddenly he's like, la, la, la. Oh dear. So then like, what do we do? Not sure. So, you can't get a message out because it doesn't work anymore. So like this, the crowd are starting to chant bullshit, which is like with thousands of people. Yikes. It's like, then this armed security bloke comes up. He's got a truncheon in his hand. He's got this stuff around his belt. He's got his uniform on. He said, before anything happens, I want you to get these people off the back of the stage. It's like, what? And look around, there's like literally about 200 people at the back of the stage just watching it from the back. So I'm thinking, surely isn't this your job? You got the truncheon, you know what I mean? And so I go up to these people, kids, crowd, and I'm saying to them, we can't do anything until you leave the stage. And they're all like, oh my God, it's the singer of the Subhumans. Shake my hand. Can I shake your hand? Yeah, it's so good to meet you. It's like, yes, all very well, but please can you just get out? That didn't work. In the end, somebody, I guess the PA guy, found what had gone wrong and made it go right again. It all started up. That was a scary moment. Yeah, we haven't done anything as big as that since because, well, the novelty of us reforming after whatever years it was something of a crowd puller, it turned out. But there you go. Thankfully, most of the shows we do are way smaller than that and much more intimate and face-to-face, and that's the way we like it, really.
The alarm back there is going off.
Yeah, see, now that's my experience with seeing live, both with Subhumans and Citizen Fish, was it was always a medium to smaller venue.
Yeah. I mean, with the Fish, because we haven't got the pulling power of the Subhumans, pulling power has its dark side, well, not dark side, negative side, as much as you don't get to play like in the basement shows. There was one time Phil was getting married in New York. So we had Subhumans coming down for a festival in Canada, coming down the East Coast towards New York, doing gigs to pay for our tickets to get over Phil's wedding. And there he had the wedding. Then on the way back, Trotsky, the Subhumans drummer, had to go home, family stuff. So Bruce stayed. He filled in for Trotsky on drums, and we did Citizen Fish gigs on the way back to Chicago, where the plane was going from. And all the way up there was just like instantly book gigs in people's garages and in their basements, and it's fucking awesome. How's swearing on this? Is that fine?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, good.
You can fucking swear all you want.
It's funny that you bring that up because I was just thinking about it and thinking back through all of the various bands and lyrics and noticing that swearing is not something that is very common in your lyrics at all.
Mm.
And
No, I think on maybe Daily Country Dial there's a couple of what they call explicit lyrics going on. I only thought about it when I was typing out the lyrics and filling in this thing on a website where I upload the songs. They need to know if it's explicit lyrics or not for God knows what reason. But no, swearing, there's just better, more subtle ways of saying things, even if they're really angry things, than just saying fucking this and sod that and bloody this or whatever. Yeah, I have to be really, really angry to the point where there is no other word than to swear instead of just to sum up that feeling. And that sort of not honed at all anger comes before you're 19, basically. After that, you start, thinking a bit more, whatever.
That's true.
yeah, it's certainly one of the things that I think has helped your career, and it certainly has kept me drawn in tight, is just the depths of thoughtfulness in what you are saying in different songs, many different topics, that it's not just, rote party music. There's actually substance to it.
Yeah, I mean, some of the earlier Subhuman songs, like, Till the Pigs Come Round, or Nothing I Can Do, they're just not that serious.
Yeah.
They're fun to sing. Things like Peroxide, I love singing that. And the depth is in there if you look really deeply for it. I mean, some people, quite a lot of people, create depth where there really isn't any, which is interesting. But yeah, generally, songs, I like to sort of make them as good as they can be. They got to fit. I definitely got a rhyme, except ones that don't. Well, there aren't many that don't. And they've got to have some sort of beginning to end situation, or it has to link up. And it also has to probably challenge a subject matter I've written about several times before without repeating myself. So it does actually get harder writing songs the more you write.
Yeah.
Like hum. Oh well.
So Dick, I mean, you guys have been all over the world. Like, what's been your favorite place to go and play and visit, and why? Was it a show in the crowd, or the country itself, the culture?
This is another one of those questions where it's like multiple choice.
pretty much.
Like multiple things. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier and I still couldn't decide. And I was going to say Australia, because Citizen Fish went there twice, Subhumans went there once, and there was no really bad shows out there. And if you go further north towards Queensland and stuff, that you can see some really amazing countrysides, the wildest rivers, the strangest looking trees, and it is dead hot up there. It's like, jungle heat area to be in. So perhaps the best gigs, in some sort of way I've never really considered before, might be to do with the local scenery and the weather and just the environment of the place you're playing in. Because to be honest, most shows we do, the first 10 gigs you do, they're all like completely individual, they're amazing. But after you've done quite a lot, or a hell of a lot, it's hard to instantly pick out the best gig or the whatever gig or this moment and that out of the whole. So much. It's just so yeah. Australia's a good place to play. It's a pity it's like the furthest you can possibly go for us to get a fucking
No
tour.
doubt.
Well, we know some of our Australian brothers and sisters in some of our Facebook groups, man. They actually long for punk rock to come to Australia because it's not an easy country to get to. Or
No, probably more difficult these days. What with the travel restrictions and COVID and all that. We did Australia and New Zealand. We had to go to embassies and fill in forms and prove you got the money to come back with it, and you got to buy the tickets first, and it's quite an expensive thing to fail at. If they don't let you in at the end of all this stuff, you've lost a lot of money. But luckily, if you do it right and they let you in, or they did, maybe they would again.
All right.
I got. How about, what was your motivation for starting Citizen Fish post Subhumans?
Oh yeah, I read that question in the list, and I thought, well, put it this way: are you aware there was a band Culture Shock in between Subhumans and Citizen Fish?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Motivation. Well, to keep being in a band and keep singing and keep writing and keep performing and keep doing that thing when Culture Shock split up, and I ended up in Culture Shock partly because Subhumans split up. I mean, one thing stops, you better bounce off the depth of that and go to the heights of doing something fresh and new, even if it doesn't sound the same as the last thing you did. It's the doing it, really. That's the motivation. It's a continuous motivation because it's fun. I enjoy it, and it does me good, and people like to watch it, listen to it. It's I'm lucky to be in the position that I'm still doing it. Very lucky, in fact. So I'll cheers to that.
Yeah.
The ska aspect of Citizen Fish, like what was it was a departure, because it was just a different framework, different style. And
Yeah.
Was that something you'd always been interested in?
Well, in a subliminal way, I mean, Culture Shock before Citizen Fish were doing a lot of ska music, so that sort of carried over into Citizen Fish. Me and Jasper came from Culture Shock to Citizen Fish. Trotsky and Phil, well, first it was Trotsky and Larry, then it was Trotsky and Phil, and that was like 2 Subhumans. So that ended up being 3 Subhumans in Citizen Fish, and Jasper was in Culture Shock, and so there was a mixture. It was always going to be a mixture of Subhumans and Culture Shock, ska and punk, anyway, because of the nature of the people in the bands.
Right.
But I think the subliminal thing was around 1979 when I was a teenager, and you go to the local disco and you have your quarter of an hour of they'll play a Clash song, they'll play a Ramones song or whatever, they'll play a bit of Sex Pistols, and then they'll do the same for the mods, and a bit of two-tone, bit of ska. And next to punk rock, the two-tone stuff, it was like, actually, this is quite good. But you kept that to yourself, because obviously mods are wankers and they think punk rockers are assholes, and that's just the way it is.
But
When
not
you're
much
18.
changed.
Yeah, that's the way it was. So I mean, we're talking small town stuff. It was like me and 8 other punks just staring at the 5 mods. It was it wasn't gang warfare. But the thing is, that two-tone stuff stuck in my head a lot, and I did like it. You didn't really like it enough to buy it or to admit you liked it to all your fellow punk rockers.
Well, that was one of the great things about Culture Shock and Citizen Fish. Listening to me even more recently and picking up on some of the two-tone influence, and then just the whole ska punk explosion that happened here in the States. Then you listen to Culture Shock and Citizen Fish, and it's its own thing, that it's its own blend of ska and punk that just worked so amazingly well.
Thank you.
Without sounding like any of the others that anybody else has done. So cheers to you for that one.
Yeah. Well, I didn't really realize how much I liked it until I started singing to it. I never played all this reggae and ska music, and I'd never really listened to much of it. Well, I heard it, but it'd always been like punk rock in one form or another in the record collection and that. But to sing to that music is like it was a new experience. It's just like all this space. You could actually sing slower or put more words in the same line, be more understood because there's more space for the words to flow out. And as for the moving, the dance, and the beat to it, just like, fuck yeah. So you just mix it together. We were all like punk rockers doing this music that we'd never really played before. So we were all like really freshened up by it. Right. And it was a mental change. It was good.
So can you tell us what it was like to be a young man in the mid 70s when all of this was brand new? There was, you obviously have your influences, but what was it like then when, you have the Damned and the Pistols and the Clash and Crass, all of this coming together? What was that like for you?
At the time when it was all coming together, I spent most of the years at a boarding school instead of doing what most people did, because my dad went there, he liked it, so he sent me and my brother there. He got a discount for being a one-parent family because he had to pay for it and stuff. It was weird. And it was an all-boys school, so that was weird as well. And it was pretty regimented. And then punk rock came along, and then these bands were singing lyrics about like bored teenagers. Where are we now? Bored teenager. That fits. I'll listen to more of this. I like all this. And all the fast music that you'd heard on all the Yes and David Bowie and whatever LPs before, all the bits you liked were the fast bits. Punk rock brought all the fast bits of music, put all together without any slow bits. It's like, yeah, I like this. It's like, it speeds you up. And being in a sort of a semi-oppressive way of living and unaware of it became being in that and being aware of it with songs like No Fun and just like, yeah, this is no fun. And then, and so on, your brain just picks up, and suddenly all that alienation has got company. And there's other punk rockers spring up and say, you into it? Yeah, I'm into it. You into it? Fuck you, punks. It's like, fuck you then. And it's just like, you can suddenly say fuck you and join in with other people saying fuck you against the standards that were surrounded you for so long. You didn't know any different until you just felt freed up via fucking sped up music. I think I might have gone off topic, but I mean, that's what was the question? That's where it came from, whatever. That's the influence side of things musically. What was it like in the 70s? It was full of unemployment and litter and dirt and football and macho attitudes and and punk rock. So yeah, that made it for me. Otherwise it'd be a desperately dull decade full of dirt and decadence.
So with that kind of experience and the way COVID lockdowns have affected everyday society, do you see there being a good imprint for a new resurgence in punk rock mentality?
Because of the lockdowns?
Well, just where, at least here in the States, we've had like a lot of people who they made more money on unemployment than working their jobs. And coming out of it now, it's like, I'm in the restaurant industry and it's tough. But I don't know, I feel like there's certain similarities. Maybe it's not quite as desperate now as it was then.
I know, for all the desperate nature of society going on around you in the 70s, at least you could go out and meet up with people and share your worries and your hopes and dreams or whatever with other people live face to face without having to use boxes like this.
Yep.
And lockdown is completely the opposite end of that scale. There's a desperation in society and all that going on, but it's now nailed in place by a lot of people on their own or with one other person for most of the week or most of the month. And when you go outside, there's a new paranoia where it's not just you that's paranoid, it's like everybody's paranoid now, and nobody trusts anybody. Well, okay, everybody trusts everybody else a little bit less if they don't know them already. And we've got strangers because they always were strangers, and now they're wearing masks, so that proves they were strangers. So for any paranoid teenager at the moment, it must be pretty well much proof of how they were right to be paranoid about the way society's going, because it has gone that way. So you would think, and perhaps it is happening, there's a whole bunch of people pissed off on their own with their instrument in their lockdown home, creating some of the most angriest songs punk rock will have ever heard coming out in about a year or two as a result of all this, what's going on the last couple of years. I really hope that is happening. In fact, it would make a lot of sense if it was.
Yeah.
Because where else is your energy going to go?
Exactly.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
So over the past 2 years, Dick, like with the whole pandemic, how has that changed like the future scope of Subhumans? And like, are you guys planning on getting back out and kicking ass? Are you guys?
Well, we did do a fair amount of ass kicking between August and December,
Nice.
because the lockdowns ended in June or July.
Right.
And we had a couple of singular gigs in September, like a long weekend. Then end of October, we did a tour of Germany, which took in a couple of shows in Holland and Belgium that had been postponed from the year before.
Okay.
And it was really good to be back playing again together after, like, well, at that point, about 18 months of not seeing each other at all. Excuse me. And to be going on tour was, it was like we'd almost like forgotten what it was like. Not really, but you know, it's like we never had such a gap between shows. It's just like, it was surreal. It was horrible.
Okay.
Loads and loads of people. You have to take loads of COVID tests to prove you haven't got it before, like 48 hours before you get on the flight over to Europe.
Right.
Get the t-shirts made in Europe instead of shipped over, because since Brexit, there's loads of import taxes and loads of hassle and red tape paperwork. When we got there, well, put it this way, when we played a couple of shows in England, there was no check on the door as to whether you've been vaccinated or not. No one was wearing a mask. Everybody just got down to it like it was 2 years ago, and they just had a great time, and it's just like mental and brilliant.
Yeah.
And it just put the whole outside world on hold, basically. It's like no mask, no checks, whatever, we're doing a gig, yay, brilliant. Germany, much the same, brilliant, yay, but before you get to that point, you have to prove you've been double vaccinated before you can get in. A couple of shows, they gave you a free test before they let you in. You pass the test, then they let you in. There and they're on-site testing. At one gig in Stuttgart, everybody in the crowd, literally everyone in the crowd, was wearing a mask, and that was a bizarre sight. You know, okay, is anyone happy? No one's smiling, no one's frowning. They all got a mask on. You cannot tell whether they're enjoying it at all. That was bizarre. But the point is, in terms of togetherness and shows, then Germany was a good example. Holland and Belgium, much the same, of taking COVID in its stride, being sensible about it, and everybody's still having good gigs as a result.
Good. No, that's good to hear.
So then we came back, and there was another threat of lockdown, and it seems we actually went just at the right time between Omicron and Delta or whatever. You've got to keep up with the viral calendar of who's coming along next.
Kind of springboarding off the, touring of Subhumans more recently. A Crisis Point. I after listening to that album, I have to ask you, I want to know the reason behind Adam's Screen War. Like, what was the motivation of that song? 'Cause that's like my favorite song on an album.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well. That's one of those strange songs, like Reality's Waiting for a Bus. It's a strange song, so I'm not quite sure how it really makes much sense. The basic idea behind that one was the theory that if you watch television, the actual molecules in your brain will vibrate at a certain negative intensity that will actually make your brain work less, that sort of thing. So it's more or less about the chemical interaction between viewer and the TV screen, or whatever it is screen they keep watching all the time. That's about it, really. It's a flight of fancy based on jovial paranoia about technology.
Nice. That's an excellent answer.
So over the course of your career, I mean, certainly you've written quite a few songs. Do you have any songs that you, looking back now, kind of regret and no longer play? Or do you still hold true to everything?
There's some songs that are pretty silly that you holding true to them isn't really a phrase that links to them much, There's no songs that I regret having written. There are some songs that we don't play anymore, but that's not the same thing. We don't play them because either we just didn't all feel comfortable playing it, or we didn't enjoy playing it as much as the other songs. I mean, there are a lot of them. But no, I'm not really ashamed of anything I've written.
So, like, I guess one of the most, I think in punk rock history, one of the most iconic songs, or starting of any song, is "No, I Don't Believe in." So, given the fact that I wear the moniker Reverend, which is kind of tongue in cheek,
Uh-huh.
What is your belief system like nowadays,
What in terms of religion and
or just philosophy?
beliefs? I have a lot of thoughts, and I don't really know if they're beliefs or not. People who have beliefs, they are either okay with that, or they use them to try and control other people. That's where religion comes in. It is a belief system that works without proof, relies on complete faith, and then starts giving loads of orders and creating enemies out of people who more or less do the same thing, but they worship a different God. The logical inconsistency of religion is massive. And the amount of damage it does in terms of wars and the control of populations and the inherent hierarchies of power, money, and poverty at the other end of the religious spectrum, they're just historically permanent, and they're not going to change. The whole nature of religion is a sad, the fact that we've come technologically so far as a species and we're still doing religion, it just like makes no sense. We know a lot more now than we did 500 years ago or even 200 years ago. You know, we don't have to rely on there being, I mean, like, we progress from worshipping the sun and the moon and the plants and various gods that came out of the trees and the rivers and the skies, the things you can actually see and touch and smell. We progressed, if that's what it is, to believing there's somebody controlling all that who's probably a hairy old man in a white cloth suit. It's just like, what kind of progression is that? You've gone from what you can look at to what you've got to like put a weak imagination on. It's a terrible, what's the word I'm looking for? It doesn't matter. I'll find it later. It's a terrible thing on humanity.
It is.
So essentially, we've just replaced the effigy with a more shinier effigy.
Terribly sorry.
I remember even as a teenager hearing religious wars, and it just kind of clicking in my head, like, yeah, these religious wars are not deity driven; they're greed driven.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
It's pretty obvious, right? When you get the notion.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, because like, well, you know, George Bush would go around and say he did it because a God told him to, and it's all God's plan to like go bomb this and bomb that and stand on top of big ships saying God told me to do it. I mean, yeah, if you say anything you do is like part of your belief system, i.e. down to God and your religious beliefs, then Tony Blair can go to war in Iraq and say like he spiritually felt the need. He had a voice, you know, yeah, give me a break. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, the true nature of religion should be the spirituality of it. And spirituality does not have to be connected to higher beings. It just means putting yourself on a level that realizes there is no high or low level going on, just a depth of level or a shallowness of it that permeates throughout all living things, from a piece of stone to like, you know, Stephen Hawking or whatever.
Right.
There's a level of spirituality. It doesn't necessarily have to rely on there being an outside essence controlling everything, because all we collectively know is down to the workings of our collective brain power, and everything else is imagination.
Yep, true.
So the need to imagine some form of deity controlling all this stuff has to be based on using that as an excuse to control other people. People play God, but they don't do that for too long because they'll be brought down for playing God. But if they say God told them to do it, then they can blame somebody higher up that no one else can see and can't be disproved in order to like subjugate the rest of the flock into flying around in fucking circles.
Yeah, I'm not firing you. The CEO is firing you.
Yeah, it's the chief. Yeah.
So let's we got 3 questions we want to throw at you. It's kind of our lightning round.
Oh,
You
the
ready for this?
quick questions, right?
All right. Go ahead, Trev.
All right. Out of all the punk bands out there these days, what would be your 3 bands that would make the perfect gig for you? You'd have, who'd be your opener, your supporting band, and your headliner?
I would have let's see. Oh, in order. Geez. Let's see. Okay, we'll have Atacop playing first or second. It doesn't really matter. We'll put names in a hat. All right, we'll sort that out later. Atacop are a good punk band from Bristol. They play. We imagine sort of No Means No style ish.
Oh, nice.
They're disjointed and they're hard and they're fast and they're fiddly and then they're just snap from one thing to another. They're accomplished musicians and they're very happy people.
Awesome.
Weirdly enough, which leads to another question you haven't asked yet. Hey, psychic, about the best thing to come out of punk rock over the last 4 years or whatever. And I'll answer it now. It's the fact that you've got because the members of Atacop, one's a dentist, one's an architect. I forget the other one, what he does. But the point is they've got these jobs, careers, whatever, that you have never associated with punk rock until the punk rockers that you associate with ended up growing up and going into these things. And they're still playing punk rock. And now you've got like a punk rock dentist. You can rely on a punk rock dentist to know what he's doing. You know, he'll do it quite hard and fast and it will hurt for a little bit, but in the end, it's like, yeah, go through it. So Atacop, that's a good band.
Yep.
And where do his eyes end up? I'd say we can have the Blunders playing. They're a good local band. They got their songs are a little bit too long, but their lyrics are very, very sharp and on it and very good indeed. And their songs, when you're right in the right mood, are quite like mixture of Killing Joke and the Drones or something like that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Who would be your headlining act? Who would be somebody
do
you
that.
would
We
be
need
like,
money.
that's the person I want to be on? Well, of course, we would expect
No,
Subhumans.
headline. Oh, let's get Lee Scratch Perry in to do a bit of a headline 3-hour set.
Awesome.
All right. Well, I got a question for you. What cause or is important to you right now? What's your there's plenty of causes that we could be like, well, homelessness and this and that, but there's always that one thing that boils down to something that we find to be the most important to us. What's your most important cause or issue?
Right now, it's the state of the traveling community. There is a police bill going through the Houses of Parliament, and although it has failed on its nastiest bits, ironically, by going through the House of Lords, which is like an unelected bunch of people, very old men, most of them, but they told the government, no, you can't do this, you can't do that. It breaks human rights in the spirit of the law and all sorts. But the thing is, there's still a lot of parts of this act that will come down heavily on travellers, people who already have very few spaces they're allowed to park up on in the country. And basically it's going to penalise them. Anybody who's got any complaint, real or imagined, about the travellers being in their area can take that to the police, and the police can then move them on. And if that keeps happening, there'll be nowhere left to move on to. And they can also confiscate their vehicles. And of course, when you're a traveller, your vehicle is your home. They can actually confiscate that home. They can take away their kids and put them up for adoption or state care. And travellers have always been treated like shit anyway. And now they're trying to wipe them off the map. It's fascism in another age. You know what I mean? This sort of thing was happening back in the 30s.
Right.
Travellers, gypsies, you know, the people who aren't in Joe Public's line of view most of the time, but are still on the edge of society. And the fascist fucking Tories wanted to get rid of the edges of society. They want it all looking more or less the same under their control. So I know some of these people, not loads, but there's a connection because there was a lot of travelers at the festivals throughout the 80s and so on, the free festival site and that scene and that Stonehenge. And a lot of these travelers, well, who knows where they ended up. A lot of them went to Ireland, it turns out. A good move. Get away from all the bollocks that is this country. And a lot of them just took it too far and have left us. But a lot of them turn up in irregular places for 30 years older and doing whatever they do and still traveling around and sharing the planet without thinking about boundaries all the time or who's immigrating here or who's emigrating there. And they're a free thinking society living on the edge of this one, and they're an example to us all at best.
Well, that's been true for pretty much any fringe order of society, even punk rock. Punk rock was, before, there was travelers, before there was punk rock, but punk rock just created a different breed of traveler.
Yeah, well, punk rock created musical travelers, and I say idea travelers, you might call it. People thinking outside the box, as they call it these days, just like thinking freely for themselves and making more associations about what life really is like. Like when Crass came along, they had that song "Band from the Roxy," and there's that line in it: "School, army, church, a corporation deal, a fucked up reality based on fear, a fucking conspiracy to stop you feeling real." Just like, whoa. And I read it, it's like, and I had no idea what a system was. And they're like, the church is part of this system, is it? I thought it was just like, a church, army. I could see that being part of a system. School, blimey. And like, it's part of a system. Then corporation deal. I didn't know what a fucking corporation was. I had to think about that one. It's just like, that's like shops, but bigger in it or something like. Just like you find out how ignorant you are through lyrics like that. And you also find out that all your paranoia more or less might be more accurate than what you're being paranoid about. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Right. So obviously we're our moniker is Rules of the Pit. And the whole idea that the rules of the pit are the same as the rules of life. And the whole
you pick people up.
Punk rock ethos. So what is your number one rule of the pit that translates out into life? Loaded.
Be careful and don't get hit.
Keep your elbows up. Sorry.
So when I first reached out to you, I let you know that these guys brought me in because I'm a chef, and so there'd be food related questions.
Oh yeah.
As I've understood it, that you're a vegetarian.
Yeah.
Is that something you still hold to?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So there's like billions of different rationales for different people. What were your reasons for choosing vegetarianism?
The slaughterhouse, just the blood and the guts and I read about slaughterhouses and the cruelty and the mismanagement and just the lack of skill in doing that job. Just like it was too much. It was like not only were they being killed, but they were being half killed, like semi-stunned, just like just horrible way to die. And then I saw pictures of chickens in cages, factory farming, and it was just so cruel and unnecessary.
Yeah, fair enough.
So do you do a lot of the cooking for yourself?
Yeah, all of it, unless you're on tour.
Sure. So what is your favorite recipe?
Right now, it's fake fish and chips and peas. Now, peas are small green things. Okay, yeah, we know that. Chips are what you call fries, but bigger,
right,
and not so full of other ingredients, just like potato.
right.
Yeah.
And they're obviously that shape. I keep doing that. So that explains that. The fake fish is like sliced halloumi.
Mm-hmm.
Don't you love it when people talk like this? No, I don't. Shut up. Right. Halloumi, block off, knife, slice. Then you mix together let's see, what is it? About 60 grams of plain flour and some baking soda, like teaspoon of that, teaspoon of say garlic powder, and bit of chili powder if you want, bit of salt, bit of pepper. Chuck it in the bowl, mix it all in with some water and almond milk is my milk of choice at the minute. Mix that together. That's the batter stuff. So it's a bit sloppy and gloopy and comes off the fork like not straight away, but it's not sticking to it. So you get a good consistency for that. Then you get some flour, put the halloumi in the flour, dust it, stick it in this batter mix, stick that in the preheated frying pan, then chop up the potatoes in size and style of your choice, chop that in another frying pan, avoid the house blowing up by putting one chip in the pan before it gets too hot. Then when that starts bubbling, otherwise the whole fat could just like, not fat, the oil could just blump, explode apparently. And then cook at a decent temperature. It all comes up with loads of batter around the piece of halloumi, tastes like magic, and yeah, have a good meal. And it's not expensive, and you can do it with just 2 frying pans, 2 rings on your cooker, 1 bowl, 1 knife, and a fork, and a pair of trousers. Because if somebody walks in and you're not wearing your trousers, the shock might kill them, and then you won't get to eat before the cops are around. It just gets complicated.
It sounds like you know your way around the kitchen quite well. If you get tired of doing
yeah.
music and want to move to the States, I'll hire you.
So I wanted to ask you, Dick, what's your writing style with the Subhumans? Do you guys do you write your lyrics ahead of time, or do they kind of put everything together?
It's changed over the years. Way back when, I used to have so many songs that like whatever tune they came up with, I could find one that fitted.
Nice.
Luxury. These days I write less songs because I think more about me. It takes longer. They've got to think harder. They're good songs, but there's less of them.
Right.
And so the last album, might as well use that as an example because albums don't get written very often these days. That was in Crisis Point. And we're at Trotsky's place. He lives south of Bremen in Germany, in the middle of like almost nowhere. So we all go out there and do a few shows in Germany on the 2 weekends and use the week between them to do a bunch of practicing and making up new songs. So I'm sat in his garden on a chair, pen in hand, thinking, right, just write a song. And then it comes out, and then another one, another one. So I wrote about 2/3 of Crisis Point in that week, and the other songs have been written previously. So it's quite often a case of a deadline will force me into just getting it. So the lyrics to that album aren't as thought out as other lyrics, perhaps. It's hard to make judgments on that or degrees of it. But they're all true to what I was thinking at the time, because you walk around, even if you're not writing stuff down, things just build up in your head until they form pictures, and that feeds when it comes out of the pen.
Nice. No, that's awesome.
And then fit that to the tune they probably already made up, because Trotsky lives in Germany and we're in the UK. We don't get to practice much. We're talking like once or twice a year, so we're all back at square one to having to invent stuff. We haven't really got much ammunition by the time we turn up for these practices. In order to make new stuff, we have to like work at it there and then and just really get down to it.
Right. So like for your shows, I know a lot of musicians myself. I'm a musician as well. Everyone's got some sort of pregame warm-up, whether it's reading a book, having a cold shower, having a beer, smoking a spliff, who knows? Like what's your pregame warm-up? What gets you in the mood to just go out and kick some ass?
It kind of depends which band we're talking about, but the last one on that list is more likely than any of the others. I mean, a cold shower, does anyone actually really take a cold shower when they go on stage?
You never know.
Calm down a bit.
There's not voluntarily, no.
There's no, the only regular thing that we do is just normal stuff, having a few drinks or whatever.
Yeah.
But none of us have got any peculiar eccentricity that we have to do before we play or anything.
No.
It was a really dull answer. I could have made up some stuff. I like to mix some tarmac.
That's awesome.
Forgive my ignorance on this one. Did Bruce play guitar on Day the Country Died?
Oh yeah, he's played guitar on the lot.
On
Yeah.
a lot of.
Oh.
So I always found it one of the things that I love. Like I saw you guys play in Chicago at the turn of the century, somewhere around there, and reading tablature over the years and stuff. I always found it very appealing that he doesn't stick to just basic fifth power chords. A lot of thirds and just different modalities that he uses.
Yeah,
And then I saw.
Yeah, with words like modalities and thirds, you and him could just talk through the night. He's he actually teaches music. He's been interested in music since he was a young kid, and he's taught himself, mostly influenced by punk rock and pre-punk rock, like stuff like King Crimson, Led Zepp, that sort of thing. So he gets a lot of ideas and replicates those ideas, then makes them his own. And he loves inserting different beats and different time. What's the word for it? Temperatures, not temperatures, scales.
Time signatures.
Signatures. Yes, we've got it. Yeah, he loves doing that, and that complicated structural stuff being influenced by punk rock makes it quite interesting, that it leads to the stops and starts and the curious bits, keeps it fresh.
Nice.
Let's jump in the Wayback Machine. Prior to you ever finding punk rock, what was some of your favorite rock artists prior to punk rock being something in your life?
Black Sabbath was one. I heard their Paranoid album when I was about, I guess, 12. And I thought it was like, this is different. Never heard nothing like that before. Never heard heavy, powerful guitar chords. Only stuff I'd heard before that was just the charts, pop stuff, Donny Osmond and the Rubettes, the Basic Rollers, and Shalala, and ABBA were quite good. They had a song that reached into the core of the central being of humanity. Not many, but a couple. No, really, I mean, the notes in the song, the chorus of Waterloo or whatever, no, SOS, that was it. The chord sequence, the scale it's in or whatever. What's the word for that? It's not the scale it's in, not the
chord
tone
progression.
Yeah, well, the notes, but just to use that word, yeah, the notes they use. But it just, yeah, and it doesn't. I know every day. Oh my God, Dick Lucas likes ABBA. What the fuck? What the fuck? It must be the lockdown. He's got mad. He's got fucking COVID. It's all about what notes do, and it's only like 13 notes on the piano. Like, you get the right combination of it. It's amazing what it can do. And the bottom line of all this stuff is music. Otherwise, you'd be a poetry network talking to poets. The excitement might fade a bit after a week.
A little bit.
Or 2 weeks. Obviously, I'm a poet myself.
Well, Dick, I don't want to have to keep you any longer. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you, your music, your contribution
Well, thank you very
to the
much.
punk rock world. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Right. Well, if all goes well, the Subhumans should be over on the West Coast for a tour in late July.
Nice.
We're just
Nice.
starting to sort it out now, trying to get work permits and all that malarkey. So fingers crossed we'll be over there.
And we have some people on the West Coast who may be able to meet you and say hello.
So what?
Yeah, Churchy here is in Oregon.
This is true.
Right. Yeah,
This
I
is
think
true.
we should be in Eugene and or Eureka at some point.
Nice.
Yeah. The boys here Shep Brady, he posted in our chat like, hey, check this album out. It's The Day the Country Died. Is that right? That's right, right,
Yeah.
Jeff?
Mhm.
And I listened to it all the way through, Mr. Lucas, and like I been in, a punker since I was 13. I just turned 40 in 2021, and I've seen the Subhumans logo everywhere, and like that sounds like a band I should check out. And I feel like the biggest idiot in the world, and I listened to the album. I was like, this is great. Why how the hell did I sleep on this? Talk about being late to the party. So thank you.
Well,
That's
better
a
late than
wonderful
never.
album.
The party does need fresh ears turning up to remind itself of what it's like.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
hey, I mean, you're only what was it, 40? You got years
sir.
to go yet.
Yeah.
Born in 81. Yeah.
Born in 81, height of punk rock. That's not a year to be born, that is.
Yeah. It's thank you, sir. That's just really all I want to say is thank you.
Oh yeah, right, okay. So say thank you. Please don't call me sir. It just feels so
All right.
weird.
You got it, Dick.
Well, we couldn't be more happy to have you on with us, Dick. Really appreciate it.